session is going to be.
Okay. So we have other.
Okay. Hello and welcome everyone. I'm Lindsay Vastola and I am thrilled to be here to just play my role to make sure everything's up and running, because the gentleman we have here will definitely steal the show. He always does, Mr. Robert Linkul.
What's up, everybody?
Yeah, I'm sure he really needs no introduction. If you have not heard him speak, you are in for a treat. If you have, you know you're going to walk away with just a fun, creative presentation, and I'm excited to be here and be a part of it. So again, for just a quick intro for a man who needs no intro, Robert is the founder of Be Stronger Fitness in Sacramento, California. He's great to follow because he's somebody who is just, he has his finger on the pulse. He is a practicer of his preaching, and is great to follow with his creative strategies. I know many of which he'll talk to today. He is also the mind behind Training the Older Adult, which provides ongoing education for fitness professionals, which you'll get a little insight in today. So Robert, with that, I will turn it over. One quick little thing, if you have questions, use the Q&A. I'll be moderating those a bit, and I'm sure Robert maybe will keep an eye on those, and maybe we'll have some time at the end then to touch to any questions. So use that chat if you are here live watching. All right, Robert, I'm turning it over to you.
Thank you, Bud. Can you make my screen, make me shareable, please? Thank you, thank you.
Absolutely. Okay.
Are we good?
Try that.
All right, let me go. Yes.
Great.
All right, we're good to go. Hello, everybody.
Yours.
There we go. Hello, everyone, and thank you, Lindsay. I really appreciate it. I'm really excited to be here and to be here to share a lot of stuff with all of you. We have 75 minutes, and that's going to incorporate some time for, or include some time for Q&A at the end, if you would like. And I got a ton of stuff to show you. So the intention of our talk today is to go through a series of different movement patterns, which we call components. And in those components, you're going to see some consistent opportunity, like a consistent movement action, and then alternatives to go along with it based on the limitations that a client might experience. So I think the most common thing that we get, especially consulting and working with other clients, is that we have a really hard time trying to work around a client's limitation instead of with it. And that's something I like to be able to teach people to be able to do. So just a really quick little history about me. We have I've been in this industry since '99. I've had many opportunities to work with a lot of different clients and personal experiences too, of all of my own personal limitations. It's been a great experience. Hold on just a second, guys. Hey, Marcus. Would you guys mind going in the office? Yeah, thanks, bud. Appreciate it. All right. Sorry, thank you. So limitations here, it's a big thing that I want to be able to share my personal experiences, but also many different clients that I've worked with in the past. I'm 40 years old, or almost 40 years old. I've had 13 different surgeries. I'll kind of showcase that and go through it here with you guys in just a minute. But it'll give me an opportunity to share not just the knowledge, but the personal connections that I've had to a lot of these movement patterns and a lot of the opportunities. It's a little different when you get to feel it versus being told about it or reading about it. So I kind of see that it's like a Tony Robbins line: life isn't happening to you. Life isn't happening to you. It's happening for you. And that's something that I really like to look at this, is I've had great opportunities to connect with older people that have had shoulder pain, hip replacements, cancer, back surgeries, wrist surgeries, carpal tunnel, like a lot of these different things. I'm in a way fortunate to be able to connect with my clientele that way. And not that we all need to go out and like get hurt so you can connect your clientele, but I want to do my best to articulate to all of you what those experiences and what those things feel like, and how we can work with some of these non-traditional movements, if you will, to assist our clients in being successful, improving their quality. So this first bit here, this is just a big quick overlook about me. With being a competitive athlete, my entire life, I was like, I'm unbreakable. I can do anything. I can lift anything. I was pretty strong for my size. I was 1 foot away from making the Olympic trials. I was an NCAA hammer thrower. I was 1 spot away from All-American. I got a sponsorship from Reebok. Like, I was all pumped and I was thrilled to be able to go out and like pursue this effort to make the Olympic team. That was my dream. And one day, just doing a regular old back squat workout, I blew my back apart. My L5S1 ruptured, blew apart in my back. And that was just the start of a whole slew of limitations that I've gone through, from my hip replacements, top right, hip dislocation, bottom right, learning to walk again from a walker, even being in a wheelchair here and work for a while. I had a carcinoid tumor in my lung, bottom left, and they took out like 80% of my lung. Cool thing about the lung is over time, through expansion and breathing techniques, you can actually expand that material. So you see it's pretty open now. It's actually made itself a bit bigger in some of these more current x-rays. That was like 2 years ago, that x-ray. I've had carpal tunnel surgery. I had a ruptured ligament in my wrist that I had repaired from years of lifting and throwing, and just all kinds of great stuff. So it's my opportunity to brag about all the limitations that I've experienced, and I'm still able to train. I'm able to find ways that maybe aren't where I was. It's not the high, competitive, dynamic, explosive movement stuff that I used to do. And it took me a while, ego-wise, to make that switch, right? To kind of transfer into the mindset of like, I still want to train and be strong, but I'm not a competitive athlete anymore. And a lot of our clients are coming through that same thing. It's not a realization of like, it's over. It's just, it's different, right? That's really the kind of the key to this. And I'm not big on quoting myself, but one line I do like to share with people is that through all of this, like through the majority of this, my mindset was, I'm a strength coach. There's more respect to that title. There's more dignity to the idea that you're a strength coach. Even if it was at a country club, I'm the tennis and the golf strength coach. I'm a personal trainer on the side too. And that was my mindset for a while. And while pursuing the idea of becoming a strength coach, that's me. That's what I want to do. I was terrible at it. Every team I worked with, they didn't do all that great. Any individual athlete didn't make huge gains. I wasn't good at periodization for performance. I couldn't do it with myself, let alone do it with my clients, right? Almost every year I'd start with my highest mark and then get worse as the season went on. So it just, I didn't have a coach. I didn't have direction. Those were all learning experiences. But on the side, I was building this business of working with clients, and the majority of them had bad backs. You can see me wearing my back brace there in my hammer throwing pictures, because my back hurt all the way back to 1999. My senior year in high school, it started to bother me. And so, I had connections and opportunities to start to build a clientele there. But my mindset was, this is just a side job. This is just what I do to make money. And in like 2007, I had this epiphany, this moment where I'm working with a client. I have to kind of show this photo. I know it's a little grody, but to show you guys, I've actually had people call me out and saying like, I don't really know if you really have that. So now you can see it. I had this moment where I was working with a client, and he goes, I just need you to understand, like, what you've done with me, it's changed my life. And he goes, I'm sure some people tell you that. They say like, oh, this has been life-changing, or this has been so great. He goes, I literally went from not being able to get myself out of bed without assistance to the point where I can do pretty much everything now. I can golf again in this. You've had this drastic improvement in my life, this massive change, the improvement of quality, right? And he goes, I owe that to your direction. And that was my moment where I was like, why am I fighting this whole idea of being a personal trainer, of working with aren't maybe competitive athletes? Like, why am I fighting that? So from that moment, I said, screw this. I'm going to embrace this. This is my thing. This is my direction. And 100% switch the flip, and off I went. And so I don't regret it for a second. I have massive respect for strength coaches and performance coaches, but this is where I belong. I love this. I love this demographic. I love teaching about it just as much as I love actually coaching our clients here. So it's just a great honor for me to be able to involve and improve, the quality of life of the people I have here, but also hopefully connect with you and give you some information that you can take back to your people. Maybe I could open a second location and have another 100 people that, I'm able to kind of work with here and there, or I could help 300-400 different coaches and then have an effect to all their individuals. And that to me seems more like a dharma, a life mission and intention in life for me to pursue. And I really connect with that. And a big part of that is changing a mindset, not only for our clients and for us, but for our general society of what older adults are. And part of that, you know, Mark talked about it this morning, you know what I mean? That ageism, like this is that, I call it common practice. Like this is what everybody just kind of thinks and they kind of go with it and no one questions it, is that old people don't lift heavy weights. Like they can't, they'll get hurt, can't press overhead and can't do things dynamically or fast and never move, you know, explosive movements or throw things. You have to have constant supervision. You know, you can't do bird dogs or bridges and warm up your own. And if you have arthritis or if you have osteoporosis, lifting weights could actually be more harmful, right? And the amount of walking and golfing you do every day, that's plenty. You don't need resistance training. Like these are very common practices, common thoughts in our industry that we need to change that mindset. And I know I'm preaching to the choir, right? But it's difficult for us sometimes, like get through to our clients and say, hey, don't you get it? And you understand like what we're trying to do here? This isn't you. That when doctors tell you, oh, you shouldn't reach overhead anymore, I'm like, bullshit. That's not an acceptable answer to me, right? I want to fly. I want to get my shirt on, number one. I want to fly. I want to do my hair or my head. I want to be able to put my bag in the overhead compartment. I want to do things on my own. I want to be independent. And that's not part of it, right? You shouldn't bend over and pick up stuff. Like those kinds of things that drive me nuts. Is what are we here for? You know, that's an improvement, quality of life. That's massive for us, okay? So all of my personal experiences, all my education, and then all my opportunities to learn from other pros and other experts and heroes of mine like Lindsay, who introduced me. I'm taking all of that with my team, my wife, and our trainers, and year after year, we kind of revamp our blueprint, our philosophy on how we train. And the reason I want to share this is because you'll understand as I start going exercise by exercise why I'm picking the ones we're picking, right? So we have hinges and rows. Those are two movement components, actions, if you will. And they're most important, and we need to do those first in our workout every day. So I get to see clients twice a week for an hour, maybe 3 times if I'm lucky, okay? 168 hours, I get 2 of them. So hinges and rows, number 1, number 2, either order, those are the 2 I'm always gonna do. And then whatever the third one is, it can be split stance or loaded carries or anything overhead, pulls, raises, pushes, whatever it is. Those are the 5 I must have in every workout by my priority. That's my philosophy, and that's what I want in there, okay? It doesn't mean we don't do all the other things. It's just not a requirement every single day. So those 5 demand. It makes programming for me very simple. I know exactly what is going to be included every day. Our modalities, or styles, or strategies, if you will, of how to implement some of these movements. And this one's kind of a cheat. Fall and injury prevention. That's like balance, reaction time, coordination. It kind of funnels all of those. That's fall prevention. And then power production, teaching our clients to be explosive, to move quickly. And most coaches, they hear power and they think snatches and clean and jerks and box jumps and bounds. But we, for the most part, we don't have clients leaving the ground, right? Risk of injury plus their athletic ability may not be where we want it. So we transfer all that energy into implements and have them throw them, slam them, spike them, toss them, right? And we get to transfer in, and you think about it, like, when do you ever get to do that in life? When do you ever get to just transfer all of your energy? Unless you hit punching bags or you throw stuff, you don't really get to do that. Every other movement in here, I have to control it until it's back to where it belongs, except for with power production release drills. So that's a big one. We want to do that every opportunity we get, okay? And then we minimize our horizontal pushing. Doesn't mean that we don't do it, we just minimize it. As far as like bench press and push-ups are really the 2 big ones, okay? And you'll see some modifications and some, doesn't mean we don't do them at all. It just means that we just don't do them all that often. I think there's greater emphasis and more bang for our buck to work on our hinges and our rows than our horizontal pushing, just because we do so much in front of us already, okay? And then we feature something called a pivot point. Pivot point's basically a landmine on the ground, or if you had a landmine hanging from the ceiling, okay, we use lifting straps, okay, like you put the rings in for muscle ups and pull ups, that type of thing. So we use those with a barbell, you'll see here in a few minutes, and we'll kind of feature that. Now, if you were at FAI, if you were at this event in June, I believe, then you saw part 1 of this. This is kind of the second step. And so we might revisit 1 or 2 of the same ones, but this is for the most part entirely new stuff, okay? And then there's the blueprint: hinges, rows, loaded carry, splits, overheads. Our leverage points, those are our pivot points and our landmines, our fall prevention, and our powers. And the whole idea is that in this first column, like, think of this as like a teaching syllabus, okay? Our block calendar for school. These are all the things we're going to teach first and second and then third. And then once we've taught it all, then we have this open, this open array, this menu of just stuff that we can pick. We can pick anything. But in the beginning, like Marcus just back here, brand new client, sorry about the noise to start, brand new client who's supposed to be done, by the way. That's why I gave him the old, hey, what's going on? So I kicked him out of here. He knows exactly what to do. What's his first hinge? What's his first row? Like he knows all that in the beginning. And then once he kind of teaches all of those, then he's golden. He can be as creative as he wants because he's taught all the movements that we want to incorporate, right? So that's this blueprint just blown up a little bit bigger. Always happy to share this with you guys. You should be able to see it here on the handouts when we send them. You should be able to see this just fine. But if you don't, email me. I'm happy to share it to you and send it to you. And we've posted this a few times. trainingtheolderadult.com on the website. It's right on the main page too. You're always welcome to check it out there. And then we have another one called another online education offering that we actually just finished 2 days ago. That's training for physical limitations. And we go through each body part, back and hip and knees. And so we just finished with the foot on Wednesday, and I teach all those exercises. It's just progressive movements, right? So we have all those. The idea is that I want a blueprint that will kind of help me, a direction, a system that'll help me work with all of our clients, all of our movement patterns as we go through. All right, so without further ado, let's go into this. We're going to start with the pivot point presses, right? I know I like the hinges, but because I like hinges so much, I'm saving them towards the end because I got some really good ones that I want to show you. So we're going to go with a horizontal press and some overhead actions. I'm giving you a couple of cues, and the cues are very similar. I didn't want to do one of these for every single one, but the cues are very similar for the majority of these actions as we go. So you can do contralateral or unilateral stances. You get a very good core activation in these split stance. If you do like a true bilateral stance position too, there's an inertial lean, like at your body's counter to lean in. There's good core recruitment there, but it can be hard on the lower back. So a lot of our clients will have them split their feet. The wider the base, the more structurally sound they are at center. So we can switch from there. All the movement patterns, every movement has a preparation phase, typically decelerating the weight, a acceleration phase, following through and moving it into a faster pattern. And then the follow through is the transition from top to bottom or change of direction. So we'll kind of highlight a couple of those as we go through, just to give you an idea what areas of emphasis we have. Range of motion, almost always we want to work the best, most full range of motion. And then our tempos, there's so much benefit for us, especially working with the older populations, to at least a 2-to-1 eccentric to concentric, at least a 2-to-1 eccentric dominant lift in almost everything, unless it's power based, of course, because we want to be like -1. That's just as fast as you can, right? So, or a 3-to-1. So a 3-second eccentric phase, because eccentrics get us super strong. And with clients in the very beginning, though we need to be progressive and gentle with our programming in the beginning, 2 sets of 8, that kind of like real gentle as we go, that eccentric control, that mentality of controlling the weight down and learning to manipulate it against some of these levers, super beneficial, gets people, very, very strong very, very quickly. So very good benefit to this, okay? The limitation that we're concerned with and why we're going to utilize this versus something else, shoulder impingement issues are very uncomfortable for most clients to perform anything horizontal at an incline or vertical. So these are great defaults for that. And then lower back discomfort. A lot of clients with lower back pain, they struggle to bench press, they struggle to do push-ups, they struggle to do overhead pressing. So how can we take the leverage of their body and put it against the leverage of these bars or these bands and straps, and have 2 levers work through a range of motion that could not be achieved by just one? So we maximize range of motion. We're going to maximize heavier load as they start to get more capable and more comfortable with lifting. And then ultimately, if we take away or we regress some of these levers, the support systems, the client will eventually be able to do these actions under their own power. So our goal, ultimate goal, is if we have some clients that just cannot perform overhead actions, is it will get them to be able to at least put their arms over their head without pain. But that's assuming that structurally they don't have something wrong, okay? So Karen's doing our traditional pivot point press, and this is basically the setup I would ask you all to do. You have a barbell, which most gyms have, and the straps from the rings, you do muscle ups on, you put those on. These are like 800 to 1,000 pound straps, most of them. So as long as they're not damaged, you're good to go, okay? Notice the foot position with the band. So as she's pushing through the band, it gets tighter, it gets lighter as she comes down, but it's in the back foot. As she's going, let's say she starts to struggle trying to get to sets of 10 and she gets to 7 and she just can't go anymore. She can move her right foot forward and put her left foot back. So just switch her feet. She's not switching the band. She just switches her feet, and that lightens the tension. Okay, you understand how that would lighten the tension by bringing the bases of the band forward, and she could finish those last 3 reps. So there's a tweener. I love tweeners. I love stuff right in between there that'll like help you connect or bridge that gap to the next level. Okay, so that's a very good tweener. Now these arms, it's actually right where he is right where I'm sitting right now. Those arms are right here. So these arms are like $1,000, and there's no way I could have afforded them. My clients knew I wanted these because I kept talking about them. So they emailed my wife, and for Christmas last year, 5 couples that I trained, they all got together and pitched in and bought me these. And they were like, oh, we're so happy for you. And then the next day we did a workout with them, and they were like, why did we do that? But it's so cool. Like the angle, without further ado, I should get that running, right? There's so many good actions that we can do here, from a kneader press, which is a 45-degree angle press like Craig's doing, to where he would lean in further and go into a full overhead press. There's my little model wave. To standing tall and just doing a chest press, right? These arms are great. You can load them from all different angles. And so this kind of features a couple different positions. All right, so moving through here, Gary with this, he's in the arms as well. Gary has an issue with deep flexion pain. It's usually more like a labral or maybe a more superior rotator cuff issue. So what we're doing with him is allowing the arm of the lever, which is 35 pounds, to be at full right here, right? There's no support helping him. Once he's about halfway up, the bands are taking no more weight. So he's got all 35 pounds on lockout. But when he gets to the deep flexion, where he's most vulnerable, the bands kick in and it kind of slingshots the weight up. So we're assisting him with the band at the point in which he struggles the most, where he's his weakest, okay? So it's a great alternative, a little tweener that we can plug in there for him. This is my gym at home. This is the bunker, okay? And I'm using a Swiss bar because of this limitation that I have in my shoulder right now. I have a rotator cuff issue and some other stuff going on, but the pronated grip really bothers my shoulder. So I'm able to use this Smith bar. It gives it neutral grip, which you guys can manipulate too with a regular barbell. If you have handles from like a cable pulley, you slide those onto the bar and your hands go under the bar and you can push with it, right? The bar would sit just over your wrist. I have a video of that too. My YouTube guys, I have like 100-something videos on YouTube. They're all free. Like, just pop on there, check them out. I feature all kinds of stuff. I have one called Rigging with Rob, and it's how to rig up this pivot point. It's about 20 minutes, and it takes it from the strap, here's how you hook it up, and all the way through. So check that out. It's just my name. Just do my name in YouTube, and you'll find it. So this is a 14-inch rack, meaning it's 14 inches off the wall. So I can counter and support my back by just putting my butt against the wall. Got my bands down here for an anchor so that it gets heavier as I go away. My neutral grip, set my hips, and the power component. That's what I'm looking for. I want something that I can be aggressive, and I can just power through and punch that puppy in there, right? And I have the opportunity to stay at like an incline/kneader press. It's a shot putter back from the 50s named Bob Kneader, who had a banged up shoulder, and he could only do like incline bench press. And he always said, well, I'm a shot putter. That's all I need to do. So that's where the kneader press, the 45-degree angle standing press came in, but not great for the shoulder. Typically, you'd want to work the full range of motion, but on occasion we can do that. I can work that angle, or I could go all the way overhead just by leaning in a little bit further, okay? Next option, here's Teresa back in the arms. And so she's got weights and bands. And notice the bands are down low. So that's giving an activation of progressive resistance right away. They're already taught. So as soon as she starts, she's starting with like 55 pounds and pressing up to about 75 and back, where some of the other ones you get about halfway out before that band kicks in. So that's a good option there. Susan working a good counter lean. Notice she's working to that overhead position as best she can. She has a shoulder impingement and frozen shoulder. So this is more like a leveraged leaning range of motion for her to kind of manipulate into that position. And then for some of our big boys, I have one group of clients that are under 50. This is Bob and his group of guys. There's 5 guys, 1 lady, all former competitive athletes that were, college level athletes that still have that mindset. So he's in here pushing like 355 on this. I mean, look at that split, look at the range, look at the commitment under the weight. I mean, how full body active is that? Like that's what we're looking for, is how can I check off a bunch of different boxes when I'm implementing maybe just one exercise, okay? And then a couple single arm options. We have clients that just bilateral action is just not great because we have something called bilateral dominance, okay? If I'm holding a bar or a cable pulley and I'm pulling on it with 2 hands, it looks even. We're very good at manipulating what it looks like, but my right arm might be doing 60% of the work. And as I start to fatigue, my left arm will probably do even less, and my right arm gets overloaded. And so when am I ever going to seek that equality, right? When am I ever going to get to the point where both arms are as near? I don't know if we'll ever achieve it 100%, especially if you inherit a client at like 70, they've had 70 years of abuse, right? Of overdeveloping that we need to try to fix. But we want to get as close as we can. So we need to take a unilateral approach, right? So the strap here that Craig is working on is a counter lean. So the key to this is constant forward pressure. You need to continually push your arm against the strap while working the range. And then the band, notice I have it higher, like hip height, because I don't want it super tight, okay? I don't want it super tight at the bottom. Excuse me. So he's working this good counter lean. And now if I took a video of him directly from the side, you guys would be like, oh, he's leaning at 45 degrees. But his arm, look at me real quick, but his arm is in line with his torso. So if I turned that camera footage vertical, he's straight, right? Like we're training vertical overhead, even though based on gravity, we're not vertical, okay? So that's what I want, is I want to be able to achieve that range of motion. And even though he's using the strap as an assist, we're pulling the scapula back, we're opening the hood of the scapula, we're allowing a range of motion, we're allowing the scapulas to retract and to work like they would if I was doing a bilateral press overhead with one arm at a time, of course, but that retraction, you know, the activation of the scapula to engage like I was going to bridge or bench press or over that platform, right, that we pull the shoulders back into the Superman chest. I get that action, but I'm working one arm at a time. So I can eventually work the range of motion that I want, build the strength, and then if I can do this on both sides, maybe I'll be able to do it with both arms, okay? Now, if we don't have, oops, got my volume on here. So if I don't have the leverage of the strap, or if I just don't want to utilize that now, Karen is in a position where Susan is in a position where she can do the overhead action. I'm just trying to get more activation from her lat and her serratus while she presses, rather than just dominating from like her trap and her shoulder. So I'm asking her to do this press with an angled band and to work on basically wall sliding, right? Getting her arm as vertical. And I want it like out of view. See how forward she is? So if you hear me coaching, if we had the volume on, I'm saying you got to reach higher, you got to get that arm back. You shouldn't see it out of your peripheral vision, right? It should be behind you, quote unquote, behind you. But really to us, it's vertical, okay? So that engagement, that bite of the serratus of the lat to help engage from the front side of the scapula to allow the stabilization for me to reach overhead. And then Karen here is giving another example with the same like Craig was doing, just at a lower angle. So she's able to reach, and this is again her non-dominant arm, so very uncomfortable for her to try to work and reach into this overhead position, okay? So really good options for us here to work some of these unilateral options, utilizing the pivot points. Okay, a couple others. Just Swiss bar floor press. I love to floor press. Sorry, guys. The advantage of the floor press is that you can't go too deep, right? The floor stops you. So that's always the knock on bench press. And you see the guys that are benching and like, oh, I did 315. And you watch them move the bar like 6 inches. And you're like, you're not really doing it. No one says we have to touch the bar to our chest and go, but I still want to train the action or the movement pattern. If I take people to the floor, I don't get that shearing, like imagine a clam, right? And as I'm pulling the clam apart, the fibers on the inside are pop, 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 like pulling apart. Basically, your labrum in your shoulder, if there's damage there, it's kind of doing the same thing, okay? Kind of, I'm using this as an analogy. It's not exact. It's kind of doing that if you're exceeding range of motion at the bottom and going too further than your body's capable of handling right now. So we can just work a shorter range, but get the benefit of the heavier load. Because I want said principle. I want said principle as much as I can get. I need a specific adaptation to my imposed demand of whatever muscle group that I'm working. So in this case, if I can't do any horizontal pushing to full range, if I shorten it a bit, that's great. I can work, and we're not talking a ton. We're talking like 3-4 inches, right? It's just a little bit. But I can still reap all the benefits of the horizontal push. I've got a neutral grip, so that gives me that internal rotation, or the external rotation a little bit of the humerus to allow that joint to sit a little more comfortably. Takes a lot of pressure off the bicep tendon and the pec if you have anything going on there. And the alignment there, plus the grip where I can put my handles wherever I want to, that alignment, that it's almost as custom as we can get it. And it's another one of these tweeners, right? So let's say you don't have a Smith bar. Oops. Let's say you don't have a Smith bar. Let's see, I got my alignment here on these. We could floor press. So using a sandbag, you can also just use like regular old barbells on the floor. You just need somebody to hand it to them. Or if the weight's light enough, they can bring it up themselves. But I love using these sandbags with that outside handle, because notice as she presses up, she's pulling apart. So now we have abduction at the shoulder, right? We're trying to engage between the scapula, between the shoulder blade, and not just power up, but also pull apart. So we're getting a big activation, incorporating more muscle groups than just our horizontal pushers. And then another alternative we have here, this was pre-COVID, everybody, okay? I didn't touch her illegally in the hand there. We're allowed to contact. This is just a TRX ripstick. So I'm doing a horizontal, a chest press basically, but with bands progressive, and I'm in a split stance, so I'm protecting her back. Like, this is a good practice mechanic for us, where in the bench press position, inverted, bothers her back. So a lot of our limitations for horizontal pushing doesn't always have to come from the shoulder. It can come from other positions too. And a lot of the back limitations can be fed or dealt with in a lot of these. All right, so one more, this is our last one here, I think, on the pressing. If you think about our ability to move our arm to the overhead position. So let's say, if you want to do this with me, feel free, pop down on the floor, lay down, or lay on a table, or whatever you have. And if you're laying on your back, and you can take your pinkies and touch them to the floor right next to your hips, okay? And then 180 degrees at the shoulder, go all the way overhead, and then reach your arms all the way back and touch your thumb to the floor behind you, okay? So look at me real quick. My hands are by my hips, and I'm gonna go all the way overhead and touch my thumbs to the floor behind my head, and then come all the way back. So I'm working 180 degree shoulder, right? If you can do that, and there's no pain, there's no discomfort, there's no anticipation of pain. You guys know what I mean by that? Where you watch someone moving, and watch my face real quick, and they're going, you see them waiting, and they go, and there's like a spot where they jump around it, or they get through it, and they're like, okay, now I'm good, and they're coming back, and they have that other spot. Like those little spots, that's showing you that for the most part, okay, the majority of people, there's some kind of structural issue going on that really, no matter what we do, I don't know we're gonna make it better, okay? And again, I'm talking general. We need physical therapy at this point. Majority of our clients need at least one visit with a physical therapist. And our physical therapist, Dan, and his wife, Lisa, they're fantastic. We have private sector, Dan, Kaiser system, Lisa. So pretty much covers all of our clients. Anybody needs to go, they go see them. They give me a report of what they can do, what they can't do. We come back, we start implementing, right? It's one of the best relationships I've ever had. And it gives us an opportunity to implement exactly what our clients need. Because if I go to PT and they come here, we're all doing the same stuff. I don't know in detail exactly what's going to get that injury better. But once he tells me, or once she tells me, I'm golden. I know how to do all that stuff, right? So I just need that help. So if I can take somebody and I watch them do that 180 degree drill, and there's nothing, there's no concern, but then they stand up and they can't reach their arm vertical overhead, it's short, right? They're at like 3 degrees short. Then that's showing me it's, for the most part, a muscular issue, not a structural issue. So now I can look at this and say, all right, we can achieve this if I can get some things out of the way, which typically it's the hood of the shoulder coming over. So if I can get the hood of the shoulder out of the way, I can teach my shoulders to retract to neutral, not retract until they touch, right? But to retract to neutral, which basically just good posture. And then I can teach the arms to reach all the way overhead, wall slide, if you will, thumbs all the way up and back down. If I can get to that point, we've been successful. And then if I can add load to that at some point, even better, okay? So these are some of the tools we can do for that. This great therapist that I saw here, I can't find his name or figure out who he was, but he implemented the idea of when you do a bilateral overhead press, I'm holding a barbell overhead military press. Both rhomboids, both scapula, the rhomboids have to retract the scapulas together to engage them. And that makes the shelf, that makes the little platform of the scapula is engaged, that pulls the shoulder blades and opens the hood of the shoulder, and it allows the humerus to basically pivot into a position overhead. So if I want to work each of those shoulders independently, but I still want those rhomboids to have that retractive component that I would do with both arms bilaterally, how can I simulate that? And so what he showed us was the single arm push with the right arm. It's an active arm push, and then a single arm overhead press. So you watch Barb as she's doing this, and the first couple, she's not there. She's not quite. I'm coaching her. You got to reach higher, bicep to ear. Yep, right there. Keep going there. Push a little harder with the right. So she's pushing, okay? And you can see both scapula. You can see them engaged. She's pulling together and reaching. And all of a sudden, this next one, we get there. Big reach. Oh, next one maybe, or the one before. She gets one there where it's just right. And that's our cue, is that we want to be able to get to that point where it's like, yes, we're in alignment, but both shoulder blades are engaging like we would if I reached up with both arms. So the push is great, okay? A pull, in my opinion, is even better. I think this is one right here. Yeah, vertical right there. That's very nice, okay? That's exactly what I'm looking for. Yep, that's a good one too. So you can also incorporate the superset of the two. This is called a Canteen Press. I got this from Tony Gentlecore. And so we're doing a single arm press, power press, horizontal chest press here. And then these are fat bells we're using on the off arm. Oops. And we're pressing these straight up, okay? Straight out 90 degrees and then vertical at 0 or 90 degrees of that arm, okay? And just kind of powering through those two. And talk about cognitive, like dual task cognitive component. Like Ryan Glatt would be proud of this one, right? Because you see people, they either press both arms up or they both go down. And they're trying the head pat belly rub, like they're trying so hard to get these two actions to coordinate. And it takes a couple sets till you get it. And then just some other simple practices. We call this machine gun style, where one arm cycles to the other, okay? There's constant motion of one arm and just engagement. This is one of our movement prep warm-ups. Ellen, her face says it all, like, seriously, 2.5. But it's just good prep, right? To help, like, for her to keep her arms overhead and to keep doing that range. She can do that, and as long as we continue to practice it. So the question always comes up too, is like, when I'm doing this mobility exercise, whatever it is, I don't feel it, okay? Well, when you're doing it, you're very mobile. So for the most part, if there is such a thing as like too flexible or too mobile, unless you're a contortionist. Like for the regular person, you're just gonna get to a point where, and I look at you and I'm like, you're flexible enough. We don't need more. Not every stretch needs to hurt or to feel, right? If you have a good range of motion and you can do it and it happens well, then that's great. That's perfect. And our movements are the same. It's the use it or lose it philosophy, right? Like if I don't continue to train Ellen to put her arms over her head, then she's going to lose that ability to use them. And though overhead pressing, it hurts her shoulders, it hurts. So I can't do anything really heavy, but using the lighter weights and drilling it every week, she does at least 2 sets of 10 of those just to make sure we can keep that action, right? I want to just continue to keep the ability. And that way she's got it if she needs it, but it's not something we're going to overload, and we're not going to seek a huge, specific or imposed demand to get our specific adaptation, right? All right, on to the rows. Really, really fun. So pivot point rows here, okay? This is Mary. Mary is 90 years old, and she has 95 pounds on this bar. Remember we talked about the eccentric component, the tempos, right? So acceleration phase pulls it towards her, and then she has preparation phase as she's lowering it back down, and then the follow through is in the transition to come back. So this is regular speed. I know it's probably a little glitchy on your guys' side, right, through the feed. But the idea is that she's creating this swing of 95 pounds up towards her, which is kind of easy. But the hard part is that 95 pounds, it wants to swing back pretty fast, right? Because the pivot is over the bar that's in the alignment about 6 feet in front of her. So she pulls it up in a position, and then through her preparation phase, returning it back down, that's where the emphasis is. That's the eccentric 3 second, 3, 2, 1, change the direction, follow through phase, and then pull up through, right? We get that preparation, acceleration, and then we follow through. There's this gradual, just this reciprocating action, but the emphasis is that eccentric let out, okay? Such great benefit comes from this, to where a 93-year-old lady who weighs about 100 pounds can row. I mean, she's actually pulling 95 pounds. I know it's on a pivot, which is probably about 50 of actual weight pulling towards her, but on the swing back, it's picking up momentum and it's heavy. And she's getting that benefit through all of her erectors to keep her engaged so it doesn't rip her forward and pull her off the seat, right? To the counterweight of her feet in front, her quads and her gastroc and her glutes, all that engaging into the floor to keep her in place so she can pull. Like, this is a very good posterior chain, lower body isometric activated exercise that we can have a lot of great benefit from, okay? Rowing benefits, I'm gonna guess, I know there's like John Russ and some others, they're very much so in alignment with this, but I haven't seen exact research. I don't know how you would do it, but I'm gonna guess that like 80% of shoulder limitations can be improved, if not fixed, through posterior chain development. And I don't just mean like posterior delt, teres minor, major, rhomboid. I mean like the entire backside of the body. Because nowhere else in the body does the kinetic chain, that terminology, matter more than the backside, okay? From a tight Achilles to the tight gastroc to the tight hamstrings to the tight glute to the tight erectors to the tight rhomboids to the tight occipital-based movement exercises, right? They all overlap and they all engage and they all have this connection between them. If one's not doing its job or the others are having to overdo, it just kinks the body and pulls things out of it. It doesn't work as efficiently as it should. So a lot of the posterior chain, especially the erectors of the lower back and the lumbar, all the way up to the base of the neck, all that muscle activation, if that's developed and range of motion is achieved, and we just get better at retracting that shoulder to neutral, okay? To getting into that better seated posture. Evan talks about this all the time, his pelvic cylinder, right? Like getting the cylinder of the thoracic cavity over the pelvis and just sitting with that better posture. Well, as soon as you do that, the scapulas slide right to where they should be. Like that's the spot we want to achieve. But we're so overdeveloped in front of us. How do we get there? Not by more pressing, guys. It's by more rowing. So rowing components, big time. That's why they row 1 and 2, okay? Posterior chain dominant movements. So this first one here, this is a true pivot. So basically it's a pivot point, just like we were doing, Mary was doing on the seated row. So she's got this hook to a strap, and I could just have a band like Ellen's doing down here at the bottom. This is called a pull start. So palm down, I really should show you this one first. Palm down to palm up. That's a very natural action for the bicep brachioradialis, brachialis, for all three of those to engage and to rotate due to origin to insertion, right? Into the radial tuberosity, like it rotates naturally upon that angle. So feed that, like go with that rotation as you pull, okay? The pull start action, it gives you an opportunity with light weight when you're most exposed. She's contralateral, she's rotated, twisted, reaching forward, kind of in an exposed position. And I mean that by probably the most vulnerable or potential to get injured position is when she's twisted and maybe leaning forward a little, right? And then as she comes back into a rotated position that comes back to neutral, she shifts her weight over her hips a little bit more, everything's lined up, she's a little stronger, the band is at its tightest. And then we've maximized that rotation with the hand. So it's like pull starting a lawnmower, hence the name, right? So you pull, start, return, and we get to work through that action. So once I get to the point where it's like the yellow band, maybe the green one, which is next, depending on what company you have, like beyond that, the bands, they get really tight really quick. So how do we find the next level? Well, it's what Ruth is doing here at the top. We take a pivot point strap, and then we just start with a 35-pound kettlebell, and then we hook a band to it. Now, I know some people see this and there's like the rig up and all this. What's the point? The point is that Ruth has a hard time engaging her scapula and keeping that rhomboid engaged, but she's really strong. So how can I get her to like perform the movement along the guided path that I want, but with load? 35 pounds to start, and with a band, it's probably 55 or 60 when it's at her chest, and then 35, maybe 45 at the bottom, okay? So that big pull start, little thoracic rotation, like 15, 20 degrees of rotation, that's fine, okay? Two of my faves. I love those single arm contralateral. You can do them ipsilateral. And this is just a real simple pulley from Spud Incorporated. They sell them from all kinds of different companies, but Spud, by the way, guys, any equipment that I talk about, no financial connection, return to me whatsoever. I'm spend and invest in something that'll last for a long time. I want the best bang for my buck. So I'm telling you about stuff. I test everything. I tell you about things. It's because it's the most durable and the best piece that I found. So Spuds are like die hard. I can't damage these things, knock on wood. We've over the last 5 years, and I still have the original one. So super dynamite. Check the rigging here though. This is just a lifting pin here at the bottom, okay? And then we have a pulley coming up into position. These are these small little rogue, these tight super bands. You guys probably seen them before when people do deadlifts and they have pins in the floor. They can hook the bands into the floor and then right onto the bar. So like as soon as you initiate the bar, you have progressive resistance, right? Or accommodating resistance. So it's short, it's instant action. You know, he's heaving. Like I want him to like, yeah, right? Like contact that guy down. And then why? Why do we want to heave it down there? Because I want the eccentric return. So if you cheat a little bit, quote unquote, if you cheat a little, you get a little lean, a little heave, a little counter back. What does that do to the band, right? You're having to lean back to be able to win the band all the way down. Well, you just made the band tighter. So as long as you're eccentrically letting that out with good control and it's not ripping you back into position, I'm winning. Like I'm getting a better bang for the buck. Because you're thinking like, oh, I got to cheat a little. I got to use this momentum, but you're making the range of motion greater. You're making the band tighter. To me, that's a big win. Like I want that. So if you're going to cheat, this is an Arnold line. If you're going to cheat to make it better, like people gave him a hard time when he would do his curls, he would rock a little bit. And he goes, yeah, but I'm doing 5-second negatives. So if I rock to get the weight up there, because I need that momentum, and then I do a 5-second negative, I'm cheating to make it harder, right? And by cheating, I just mean like getting a little help, a little momentum. It'd be the same if you had a spotter there, okay? All right, on to these guys. Boy, I did a terrible job on my volume. I swear I went through and checked them all. All right, this is called a row your boat. Same idea. I want to lean back, counter. It's like if you were in an actual like row crew boat, you would get this action where the seat would move and the whole body, your body kind of slides underneath you. Well, this action is I'm going to have the lower body stay and I'm going to try to counter through my upper body through the inertia, but the same idea. I want to counter and lean and make the bands tighter as I come back. So she's no longer cheating because the bands are too heavy. She's doing this motion because I'm asking her to, right? So she hinges forward. We're practicing that forward hinge, eccentric stretch through the erectors, through the glutes, through her hamstrings even, because I have her on a low box. And as she props forward, those posterior muscles, all of them work like a slingshot. And so they're all loaded up. And then when she like sits back, she uses that counterweight. It helps her pull, and then she can control and eccentrically let it back out. Okay. Here's Betty. Betty is 92 years old and has frozen shoulders so badly she can barely get her jacket on and off. So part of the movement patterns that we're working with her is just learning to get activation through the scapula at all. So we just try to pull and row at different angles, and we'll move these anchor points, high, medium, low. I'll have her do an alternate grip, one palm up, one palm down, and row in different positions. And we just kind of manipulate and change and move things around, as best we can with her. And this one on the floor, I want you to take a look at it. And before I give away anything, and just kind of get an idea, like, what do you think this would be? What do you think this would be here? Okay, why do this? I see one of your comments there. She's jacked. Yeah, Linda, I wish I could tell you guys that I like helped her come like this, but when I started working with her 18 years ago, she's my second longest client. She had those arms. Where I've been helpful is that she's kept them. Number one, I'm very excited to be like, check out the pipes. We have a saying in our house that we want Linda Kelly arms. We have two Lindas. And so there's Linda Brown, Linda Kelly. Everybody calls them their full names. So we want Linda Kelly arms, right? But like the second year we started training together, they told her she needed a knee replacement in 6 months. We started doing our Timmerman program and she still hasn't had that knee replacement. 18 years later, still hasn't had it. Her knees feel great. She'll eventually need it, but we've done a good job. She was just so anterior dominant, her patella ducked forward. It was a mess. Okay, so Joan doing this row. First thing to notice, she had to do a sit down and a stand up from this box, and it's way lower than she is comfortable getting into. So we're already practicing the deep squat component for her. We do that on purpose, okay? So she's below parallel. The two stabilizing bands, left and right, they add, the orange ones, they add some tension, and the blue band adds the most tension. But notice the blue band where it's anchored at, okay? It's pulling away. So though it's triangular and there's tensions there, by putting tension and placing it at different angles of pull on the pulley, it responds to the body a little bit. It actually turns the pulley, and that other arm will have to do more. So for the first set, we put the blue band back here, and she rows pretty even right down the pipe. And then I switch the orange band and the blue band, and the pulley will turn a hair because that band's tighter. And now as a counter, she's got to pull with her left arm just a little bit harder, and then she can switch to the other. Or if I know that she has a bilateral dominance, right, her right arm stronger, I'll just always have the left side of the pulley a little bit tighter for her. I'll always have it lean to the right, so she has to pull harder with the left. So this way I can get the action. I'm doing a bilateral movement, but I'm just getting a slight little something, just a slight little tilt to engage and like get her to activate that one side just a tiny bit more. Okay. So a lot of these, gang, we can get these just small little manipulations. Oh, I love these. Okay. Where are we going first? All right, here's Linda again, Jack Linda, alternating single arm row, kind of machine gun style. Okay. The orange handles you guys see, ironic, all these have them, are called angle 90s, the best grip in the market, in my opinion. They're thick enough and comfortable enough to fill up hands for people that have arthritic issues at the hand. I absolutely love them. We brought them in. Our clients, like in one day, went from this is miserable to we're happy doing these, and they want to attach them to everything. So with a promotion like that, that's why I tell you guys, no financial return, I swear, okay? But I love these products. It's probably the thing I recommend the most. Alternating here, but notice the band that she's using. Okay, that's not 2 bands, that's 1 band looped through. We're doing that on purpose because I want her to try to keep the band level. If she pulls harder with 1 arm, it'll pivot through just a little bit. So she does her set of 10 or 12, and then we go and look at the band and we see if it favored or if it slid. Now we're doing that with carabiners. We have mountaineering carabiners. I use the REI ones because I can trust that, you know, people are falling to their non-death by these carabiners catching them. That's what I want, right? So those carabiners are high quality H2O right there. You have some high quality H2O. And so I can trust them and they won't do damage to my bands, but they'll pivot and they'll feed through if I need. Contralateral, if you're going to do alternating arms like that, have her switch halfway through. I can do ipsilateral, single arm, cross section, whatever you want to do. Okay, this is a kneeling drop row. So eccentrically, we're stretching the glute and we're getting some eccentric stretch through the erectors of the lower spine by dropping her hips. Also getting a little cheat and momentum, right? Palms are down, palms are up as she goes with that natural action. Now, we'll still do neutral rows. We'll even do pronated rows on occasion, but typically it's more like a higher row, like a face pull, but we call them chest pulls because we don't do anything up to our chin or higher. We keep everything a little lower. I feel like the higher you get, the more the shoulder rolls in. It's really hard to pull out from that position. So we keep everything like chin down. Plus, if the band or the anchor or whatever give out, you want it to hit you in the chest, not the face would be my preference, right? So this gives you a good opportunity to kind of get in that kneeling. If you want to practice getting up and down off the floor, you could do it kneeling, half kneeling, or standing in a split stance, but I love that kneeling action, okay? Another, oh, geez, come on, professional, come on. Seated row your boat here for Susan. Look at that action, right? Just a big hinge, big counter, big range of motion. If I want her to make it just a little bit harder, I'll have her slide back a little. If I want it easier, I'll have her slide forward, okay? So you can use the bench just by moving up and back a little, even in the same set. Like you can start all the way back and it's like, I need 20. And by 10, she's getting motion. She can just move up a little and it's a little easier, okay? Probably the hardest row, inverted row with rotation. These are rough, okay? Always knees bent on an inverted row. You basically want it to be like the up position of a bridge. Notice his toes are off the ground. I mean, I want him in a true pivot at the ankle. And it's just this big squeeze, this big retraction in the shoulder blade. And it should go like that. It should go rhomboid and activation with the lat and then like posterior delt and then bicep and then a little bit of forearm. Even though we're not flexing, it's just the last little bit of like pull and activation through the arm to finish that rotation to help get you there. So full extension, full retraction, full inflection, extension, like it's such a good movement. And we're inverted, Goose, right? We were inverted. You can get into that deep inverted position, super, super difficult. But if he just starts walking back a little, it gets quite a bit easier for us, okay? So you can adjust. And if you get like 45 degrees, we call that a reclined row, not an inverted row, because now you're in the reclined position. Okay, landmines, right? Same idea. I know I showed you this one. I just wanted to put these side by side so you could see how we're talking and working with the similar actions here. Okay, same idea, something that I can lean into and push and get across, but my pivot is coming from the floor now, okay? Hip action, eccentric stretch, things, the momentum. Look at that nice straight line. This is what I was talking about earlier. So if I took that video, everybody look at me real quick. If I took that video and I just turned it, right, where she's vertical, she's pretty much in a straight line. She's super close, right? So that's what I want. I want the assistance of the lever of the bar with the leverage of her leaning together to achieve a range of motion she can't do if she's just standing up trying to press her arm over her head. And then for us to get the overload, we added the band. See, it's triangled around her feet, and then it's on the sleeve of the bar. Never on the bar itself. See where my cursor is here? Never there. That's machined and grooved to be grippy, and that'll tear up your bands real quick. But the sleeves are designed to have things slide on and off. So you can put your bands on there and they'll preserve pretty well, okay? And best bands in the industry, I found Rogue and Perform Better have the best ones. That's just my opinion. They last a pretty long time and they're very, very durable and comfortable in the hands, okay? All right, so really good examples there. Some other shoulder actions. Here's the triangular grip. Again, for like 4 months of the last, let's see, 16 of the last 17 weeks, we've been outside in the parking lot. And then we had fires, so we had certain days we had to just close. But see Kevin in the back doing single arms and some of the other ladies doing both arms, okay? They can do 1 foot in the band. They could do both feet. They could do a split foot. Just great leverage opportunities for us here. Probably my favorite overhead action is the pullover. And I like this hybrid. It's almost like a declined pullover, right? Just works a little bit higher, of the initiation, like the first bit of like, if you could look at it like middle lat and like high serratus, it's kind of like that. If I'm flat on the ground, I don't get the optimal, like really big stretch out of that origin, like the first couple of that 4, 5, 6 rib marker. I don't really get a lot there. But if I bridge up, and then where I'm starting at, now we're under tension to start already because the waist is falling back. And our rule is you can't move the weight beyond your face, bringing it back towards your hips, right? It has to stop at your face. So if I bring my hips up a little bit, it kind of tilts me and it gets more bite and initiation right from the get-go. The range of motion is a little shorter, but I get more involvement, okay? So I like this high bridge. It's a really great way to work a range of motion. Love pullovers on the floor because you can't go too far. Like we can't get to a point where somebody really hurts themselves unless they've got a severe impingement that they can't even get to like 45 degrees. Then I'm probably doing all my stuff standing up anyhow. I'm not doing this yet. But if I can get close to the floor and I'm worried about sublocks or just some kind of impingement or injury or something that comes up, the floor will stop us, okay? So that's a really good piece. And then just some of these accommodating resistances, some of the band angles. You can do front raises and overheads and laterals and just different pulls. So Kirk's working this little triangle. He'd do front for 7 and lateral for 7. And then he'd bend over and do laterals, so posterior raise, and just work that band all the way through those different angles. Really, really light bands. You guys see how much we use those orange bands, those 1/4 inch bands? I think we use that one more than anything else. Like I love those bands. I think we have 30 of them because we use them constantly, okay? All right, so a couple of others here. I got 20 minutes. I'm gonna make sure I cover everything and leave some time for Q&A. This is called a reverse push-up. So hands go in. You can also use some of the straps. See the one like Marla's using right here. So holding on to the handles here, there's loops. You can put your hands, you put that hook on this band, and you can put your hands through the loops, and that way the rubber is not hitting you, the handles are, and you can do that same reverse push-up. And she's such a great example because look at that. You can see the posterior delt, teres major, teres minor. But I mean, look at all that. Even the long head of the tricep getting some activation in there, right? So you can see all that work in that range. If you add rotation to the hands too, watch me real quick. As I pull back, I rotate my hands out. That kind of corkscrews and like spirals into the shoulder, into the scapula. It allows that Superman chest position to be strong, powerful, that good retracted position. That's one of my faves. I love that. You have clients that can't go overhead yet, or they start to limit going overhead, do that. That's your lift, okay? That's such a good one. Here's just a little kneeling, or you could do half kneeling, straight arm pull down. These are like ski starts. You know, they go right out of the gates and they ring the bell and they're like, go, 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 and they're ski starting out. That's it, okay? So chest up, we're trying not to crunch. Look at Bill up front, he's crunching a little. We're trying to keep our chest up and to just pull, like long head of the tricep, lat, serrated, just get that engagement and that bite. And we cue it as like you have grapes in your armpits and you're gonna crush it. You're gonna crush it every time you squeeze down there, okay? Kneeling overhead pull. Here's Karen doing this. And we change the grips a little bit. I'll give them 1 handle, 2 handles, a padded fat handle, a narrow little one, just working different angles of pull, different grip strengths, okay? I like the kneeling because it takes away any momentum. She can't like counter and lean too much, or when you're standing, you see it right away. And this is called a reverse Y press. These are rough, so hard. But talk about posterior chain activation. So it's basically a posterior row, actually, with a wall slide combined, right? You're combined. So you're constantly pulling back and then sliding up. It's just so tough. It's not like, this is hard, but it's just the initiation of like the initiation of the movement and then the engagement while maintaining the tension all the way up. Your arms just want to shoot forward. Try this, guys. Try this one with that little tiny band, really short band, super awesome. All right, the hinges. I want to make sure we get to this. Get to turn and burn, 15 minutes. All right, hinges. Okay, and split stance, I should say. So this is a deloaded split stance. You have clients that can't do split stance exercises. Once they practice doing gait variations, long steps, and pushbacks, try this. Band from overhead. And Jerry's got a lot of weight here. He's got like 80 pounds in that band. We split his feet, and then we allow him, let's say he's 180 pounds. When he gets down to the bottom, that band gets to its tightest. He's about 100 pounds of pressure, right? And so now he can take like body load to almost half, And now we can train the range of motion, but he's just not strong enough to do it under body weight yet. So eventually at some point you have to do the movement. I just want to make you lighter so we can do it. And then I'll slowly regress the band until we get you strong enough to move into this next one. This is called a don't touch it carry, okay? Now, why is this under hinges and splits? This is a gait control. Hands go through the straps so you don't touch it. It's working on all the extensors of the wrist. Great for arthritis, okay? Half the weight you would normally carry. Like these can be really, really difficult. But because you're trying to balance and like engage this weight from the hand and you don't want them to swing, the gait changes. And you'll see people with knee and hip issues, they'll start to change things a little bit because now we're gliding. That's why I call them carries, not walks, right? This is a loaded carry. Don't touch it, carry. Suitcase, carry, because it's a smaller, smoother gait step. So you can practice a gait and then work into some step ups or split squats or some other variations from there, okay? Other ones here, we'll go down to this one. So this is a Zercher progressive resistance. So we got a band. We're doing our split squat. Notice the knee pad on the ground. Never bang the knees on the ground. Great injuries can come there, okay? Holding the band in a Zercher. So basically there's nothing at the bottom and it's gonna get tighter on the up. It's kind of the opposite of what Jerry was doing up here. These two are very good at split squats. So I wanna make it harder, harder, harder as she comes up and then lighter on the way back down. Okay, so there's a couple of split stance variations. Start with the gaits. As the gait steps improve, go to some of these split squat variations, and then we can do a couple step up variations. So notice Steve's got like 10 or 15 pound dumbbells, but he's got bands around his feet to the dumbbells. So there's constant pressure trying to fold him in half, and he's just constantly pulling it apart. So really the bands don't make the step up all that much harder. The bands just add constant tension pulling on him. So if I want a full body engagement, a lot of times when you're doing one side of an exercise, the other side is just kind of dangling, doing nothing. If you put it under tension like this, everything's on. His whole body is like, right? He's in Hulk mode. Like everything's on while doing these alternating step ups. Really great. You can do this, like use your old mini bands, you know, the ones you do monster walks and lateral sides, clams. Once they all kind of start to break and you're like, we got to buy new ones, save all the old ones and just tie them together and hook them on here. And if they break, no big deal, right? And really when they break, we're using light enough weight where he's not going to go flying or anything. But if they're getting worn or wear, we get rid of them, but they're just used, right? They're gently used. Okay. This one's great. This is called a simulated put down step up, right? So I'm setting down the groceries. I pick them up and I take my first step up the stairs. I come down gentle. I open my feet, bring the weight inside, open my feet, simulate the put down. I do the step up. And the idea to this is we're taking a bunch of life movements and we're coordinating them together. So the weight's on the outside. Whenever we sit down, we try to bring the weight to the inside. If we can, straddle an implement to pick it up, straddle it to put it down. So you have a lot of transition of the weights. Bring them in and bring them out and bring them in and bring them out. And that's a lot of shoulder girdle work. It's a lot of core work to manipulate the weight in and out, okay? The step up action, we'll even add a single leg RDL to this too. So we'll do the step up and then we'll bring the weights in, we'll simulate the put down, we'll come up, we'll do the step up, and then we'll do an RDL right there. She'll do an RDL and then come back. So you're talking just improved action, checking one more box for like single leg action, another hinge, and balance reaction kind of coordination. So these complexes are very invaluable. Now, this guy, when we talk about game changer, write down this one, okay? Watch Linda do this. You guys stop it. You go. Okay, watch this here. So this is a posterior chain activator to the umpteenth, okay? She's in a center stance, which means she's doing like a single leg RDL on her right leg, but the left leg doesn't come off the ground. She's not all the way back in a split stance. It's like halfway. So her foot's in the center of her longest gait. And it's just an assist. It's there to help her balance while we're trying to prop that right hip up and out as high as we can. The red band is anti-rotation. It's under her right foot, crossing to her left hand, okay? And what that's trying to do is turn her towards her right foot, and she has to continue to resist that. The right hand is engaging on a band and is doing a straight arm pullback. So this is a cross-sectional hinge that simulates a walking gait movement pattern, but it's simulating that in a balanced way and a strength development of recruiting against these two bands. I mean, we're checking like 8 boxes with this, okay? This is one of the best exercises that we can do. Linda's 2 weeks away from a knee replacement. This is the other Linda, the Linda Brown, right? That I started training like a year after Linda Kelly, and we preserved her knees this long by doing the same thing. But she's finally at that point where she's ready, okay? Years of cycling and running, she's banged up. So this is cross-sectional, right? The front hamstring glute is being eccentrically stretched. It crosses her back through her right glute, goes up to her left lat, left rhomboid, up over the left shoulder. That's cross-sectional. And that's exactly what you do when you're walking. Left foot, right hand. That's cross-sectional. That's how we walk, right? Contralateral. So if I can load that on that pattern, and I can hinge it and make it really vulnerable and then really strong and then really vulnerable and really strong. And I can get all those activations on and then let them off, get them all on, let them all off. I mean, think of all the benefit we're getting from that. Plus she's in a split stance, so she's kind of having to coordinate and balance. Like, this is one of my favorite movements. One of the best things I hope you take away from this. It's really cool. As my 6-year-old would say, that's dope, Dad. She's like, don't you like that word? I'm like, that's my word, kid. I taught you that word. That's from my generation. Okay, of course this is out of order. All right, so first bridge that you teach from the floor, the first hinge, right? How am I doing on time? 10 minutes. Okay, the first one we teach is a regular old bridge from the floor. I love it with 2 bands. Band around the top of the knee, always the top of the knee, never at the knee or below. Top of the knee, abduction, self-anchored with the band around the hands over the hip, and then we pull back into the floor to activate the posterior chain. So this is a full body bridge. That's what I love. It's posterior dominant, but it's a full body bridge, okay? From the floor, the next thing we do is we elevate the feet. It's the same action. You can still have a band up here, okay? I just took it off for Nicole. She's pretty strong in there. So we're working a greater range of motion, more pivot point up at the shoulder, greater range at the hip. Toes are pulled back and she's digging in her heels. If you have people that don't bridge well, teach them this one first and tell them, watch my mouse here, tell them to try to flip the box towards them. Like, she wants to dig the heat in that box so hard that the box flips over towards her. And the first time they do it, they'll do one and they'll grab their hamstring. That'll be the first time they've ever done a hamstring and glute dominant glute bridge, because almost everybody pushes down. That's why you should have your toes off the ground, because I want your heels pulling down, toes pulling back, so the anterior tib is on, right? It's completing that change like a pulley, right? Both sides are on. By the toes pulling back, that's engaged. Or else if you push down, it's just quad push. And the next thing you know, they've worked themselves across the floor, right? They're getting longer and their shirt's pulling into their neck. And that's a quad dominant push. Just stand up. You're trying to stand up while laying on your back, not what we're shooting for. So heel engagement, pull to the up position, don't push. And now the last one we would teach is shoulder elevated, greatest range of motion here, but can be difficult on the back. Also, hip replacement client, which Jerry is, the band has to be above the hip, okay? If you put it below and it's pulling on our now fake femoral head, it can, if you relax the bottom, it can pull it out. You guys might not know, with hips, there's not a lot holding it together. It's basically us being vertically compressed together in any muscle engagement. There's no labrum. There's no gelenial muscles, the little muscles in there that are right around the joint. I always pronounce those wrong. None of those are there to hold that puppy together, right? So it's just your glutes and your hammies, and it's all that to hold that stuff together. So if you get exposed like that in deep flexion and there's a band pulling on it and you relax, it can pop out of there. So if you're going to do it, Jerry's a very experienced client at this. It's got to be above the hip, and that's way down the line, okay? So those are your hinges on the floor. Then we're going to go to hinges from the vertical position. And some of my faves from here, this is called a skier squat. Okay, elbows on the thighs, pivot, stick your butt up in the air, get a big hamstring stretch. The blue band is abduction, so all 3 glutes are going to be firing rather than just the glute max that you typically don't get medius and minimus to fire without the bands on. She has this orange band as an upper body counter. It's just giving her upper body something to hold on to. And then the back is perfectly flat. You do like 2 or 3 sets of 20 or 30, you're smoked. Like, this is so difficult. Quad dominant to engage, hamstring eccentric stretch each time you come up. Great. We nicknamed them can openers too. Like, it's just this big, like, open in the hip and open in the hammies. Really, really tough. All right. One of our sit to stands. Okay. Hip dominant first, sit down, deload. I love to deload, turn it off, re-engage, turn it off, re-engage, right? Bands around the outside, so she's having to push against it so she doesn't get that valgus collapse. Band gets a little harder, a little easier. Linda can hold that bar and that supinated grip. Myself, Erna can't. So we have her hold a fat bell. Band attached, same movements, just a more comfortable goblet squat rather than that barbell and the reverse front squat, okay? So I love those, great, great movements. And then our more advanced hinges, we have rack pulls. Love the rack pull. In a hex bar is ideal, like you see Linda on the right. But if you don't, you have some handles you can attach to the bar. This is great. About 2 inches above wherever they're most vulnerable at. So there's some depth. You get there and it's like, I could get hurt. Go 2 inches above it and train from that range. So we're taking that risk factor away. Traditional deadlifts from the floor. Nice deep squat, contact all the way up. Susan, about 150 pounds, and she's got 85 pounds on here for like 3 sets of 10. She's gone up to like 120 before for a set of 8. She's pretty studly, 78 years old. Okay, and then here's Linda. Linda's got like 105 on this bar. Okay, her training partner, Barb, on the side. They're not quite ready to be in the rack, so she's just doing some simulated rack pulls over there with a sandbag. But inside the hex, okay, Linda's chin could be down a little bit, a little heavy with the neck, right? Big eccentric stretch. She gets to deload at the bottom, shut off her hammies, re-engage them, like single rep practices, basically. We want to take away the eccentric, that slingshot advantage on occasion, so we can teach just pure strength, just like engage it and do it and then return, engage it and do it and return. So it really wasn't a set of 8. It was like 8 individual reps. Okay, there's no dimmer, it's on and off, and that teaches that deep flexion strength when you're struggling to get out of the booth or a car or off the toilet, right? That teaches that strength. So there's great value in those sit to stands where we deload. That I think might be one of the most applicable movements that we do that transfers to real life. All right. I know that was a lot. I hope you enjoyed it. If you have questions, please feel free to fire away. I know I didn't leave a ton of time. We got like 4 minutes, but I would love it to answer whatever I can. You guys can email me too. There's my email address. Evan Osar and I too, we have our 2 bald brothers and a microphone. Our podcast, our webcast is coming out on this Thursday. So I just want to give a little shout out to that coming up here soon.
Awesome.
Questions?
As always. I always feel when I listen to you, I feel like I get a lesson in like physics, Cirque du Soleil, engineering, just the creativity. That's what's so fun, I think. And you obviously bring excitement to it, which makes everybody excited to do it. So always awesome as always. Nick asked, will you progress range of motion for rack pulls?
Yes, if the client is capable. So we're seeking the benefit of an overload here, right? So the reason I want to be 2 inches above where they're vulnerable is because I know if I go to that point, we could get hurt. They could get out of position, tweak their back, tweak their hip, whatever it is. So I go 2 inches above that, but I could probably work, because it's the top half of the lift, I could probably lift like 110% for strength coach talk, or maybe even 120% of what they would really do off the floor. So I want to really take advantage of that aspect in the rack pull. I don't know if I wouldn't lift that heavy by going deeper. I would have to regress the weight quite a bit, maybe even reduce the weight and just have it be a bar with a band that I could progressively resist. That way I know the range of motion can be achieved. The risk of load is really minimal. And then the ultimate goal would be just to get them to the floor doing a hex bar deadlift. The rack pull is primarily used though to train the top half of the lift. So I wouldn't go too much deeper without just saying, let's just change the other exercise.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Any other questions in the last minute here? I think you covered it all.
Awesome. I really appreciate everybody being on here. Lindsay, I appreciate you introducing me and you know, going through the series with me. And it's always a pleasure to see you. It's a pleasure to speak to such a great audience. And thank you all so much. I really appreciate it.
Everybody's really excited. Great feedback. Thank you so much, Robert. Thanks everybody for joining.
Thank you, everyone. Bye.